It's a betrayal of a generation.
For 8 years, Nigeria knew Yemi Osinbajo as the country's vice president. He was on the ballot paper in 2015 and again in 2019. Standing beside Muhammadu Buhari as his running mate, he represented the educated face of the administration, a law professor, a senior advocate of Nigeria, a technocrat who was supposed to be bringing credibility to the government. What many Nigerians either did not know or quietly pushed aside was that Osibanjo was not just a politician. He was also a senior pastor of the Redeemed Christian Church of God, the RCCG, one of the most powerful churches in the country. Long before he entered Aso Rock, he preached from the pulpit, taught in Bible study, and carried out the title pastor as seriously as they carried professor. Even while in government, he never formally dropped that role. This is where the paradox begins. How does a man who is both a vice president and pastor stand at the heart of power during Nigeria's most violent decades and say almost nothing? From 2015 to 2023, Nigeria was going through so many terrors such as Boko Haram massacres in the northeast, Fulani herdsmen killing across the Middle Belt, kidnapping on highways, church bombings, endless bloodshed. At the same time, rumors of Buhari's death swirled when the president spent months in London hospitals. For stretches of time, Osibanjo himself held the title of acting president, with all eyes on him. So in this video, we'll be covering these questions. Was Yemi Osinbajo truly a pastor in power, or a pastor who hid his pulpit once he got close to power? Was he afraid to speak, or did he simply believe politics demanded silence? To ride on, don't forget to like and subscribe. Yemi Osinbajo did not suddenly appear on Nigerian stage in 2015. His story began long before then. Born in 1957, he grew up in Lagos, studied law at the University of Lagos, and built his career as a lecturer and later professor of law. By the 1990s, he had already made a name as an academic with a sharp legal mind. But his life was not only about law. In the early 1990s, Osibanjo was ordained as a pastor in the Redeemed Christian Church of God, one of the fast-growing Pentecostal churches in Nigeria. He became pastor in charge of Lagos Province 48, holding regular sermons and leading a congregation. Those who attended his service described him as calm, measured, and intellectual in preaching. Not flamboyant like other Nigerian pastors, but grounded in teaching in a loyally structured way. By 1999, when Bola Ahmed Tinubu became governor of Lagos State, Osibanjo was appointed as Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice. He held that office for almost 8 years, until 2007. During that time, he built a reputation for reform in the justice system and for being one of Tinubu's most trusted aides. But what stood out was not just his legal work, it was the combination of lawyer and a pastor. He was different from the usual Lagos politician. He had clean credentials, no scandals, and a church background that made him look morally upright in political class often associated with corruptions. This double identity, being a professor and a pastor, was exactly what made him attractive when the APC alliance was searching for Buhari's running mate in 2015. Buhari was a northern Muslim, a former general, already accused of being too rigid, too Islamic, and out of touch with the South. The party needed someone to balance him, a Southerner, a Christian, a respected intellectual. Osibanjo was just perfect for this role. He had no political baggages, he was loyal to Tinubu, and he carried the credibility of being a pastor in one of Nigeria's biggest churches. For many Christians, especially in Southwest, his selection was a source of hope. A pastor in Aso Rock, that means someone who feared God, someone who could speak truth in the corridors of power, someone who would be different from others. People believed his faith would guide him, and he would not be swallowed by politics the way others had been. But what if that move was a calculated move that Tinubu used to get people's trust and vote for Buhari's government? Barely 2 years into office, President Muhammadu Buhari disappeared from public view. In January 2017, he left Nigeria for medical treatment in London and did not return until March. By May, he left again, this time for more than 100 days. The country was gripped by rumors. Some said he was brain dead, others insisted that he already died and been replaced by a body double. For months, nobody could say certainly that this is what is going on. This period, Osibanjo became acting president. For the first time, the pastor professor was at the top of power in Nigeria. Nigeria waited to see how he would lead, and at first, there were glimpses of boldness. He signed executive orders, pushed through some economic reforms, and moved with an energy many felt Buhari lacked. For a while, it looked like the pastor had found his voice in power. But when the rumors of Buhari's death spread like wildfire, Osibanjo chose silence. He avoided any strong or direct statement that could either confirm or put the matter to rest. He reassured Nigerians that Buhari was alive and recovering.
He's in very high spirits. He's recuperating very quickly. We had a very long conversation.
But he never confronted the secrecy around President's health. For many Nigerians, this was the first major test of Osibanjo's role as both vice president and a pastor. A pastor is expected to speak the truth, to stand for transparency, but Osibanjo chose loyalty to Buhari and to the APC machine over open confrontation with the truth. At that same time, Nigeria was burning. Boko Haram bombing continued in the northeast, villages were attacked, and Fulani herdsmen violence intensified across Benue, Plateau, and Kaduna. Churches were burned, priests were killed, and families were displaced. Yet the man who was both pastor and acting president rarely raised his voice beyond carefully prepared political statements. So, what was the use of having a pastor in power if he speaks like every other politician? And to answer that, it's safe to say that Osibanjo's time as acting president showed flashes of competence, but it also revealed his choice of pulpit not coming with him into government. He would be vice president first and pastor only in name. Was it fear of losing his seat at the table that made him silent? We know that politics in Nigeria is unforgiving because a single wrong word can end a career, destroy alliance, or even cost a life. Osibanjo knew this. He was not just vice president, he was also a man tied to Bola Tinubu's political machine. To confront Buhari's or openly challenge the system could have ended his political future in one stroke. Silence became the safe choice. But beyond politics lies the spiritual question. Did he trust God enough to protect him if he spoke truth to power? This is where the paradox of the secret pastor becomes sharper. The Bible is filled with men who stood before kings and rulers at great personal risk. Nathan confronted King David after the murder of Uriah. Elijah stood before Ahab and declared judgment. John the Baptist rebuked Herod and lost his head for it. These were men who feared God more than they feared the politics. Osibanjo, by contrast, carried the title of pastor but chose caution over confrontation. He stayed within the safe boundaries of politics, issuing diplomatic statements instead of prophetic warnings. Was this wisdom or was he compromised? The pulpit and the presidency demanded different languages because one speaks eternal truth, the other survives on negotiation and loyalty. By stepping into Aso Rock, Osibanjo may have entered a battlefield where the pastor in him could not survive. Politics swallowed the pastor. Maybe his silence was not a way for him to be neutral in order to balance things, because by saying little, white terror, corruption, and killings flourished only showed compliance. He allowed the system to continue without moral challenges. This is the heart of the matter. Was Osibanjo afraid of men, or did he simply decide God's protection was not enough if he challenged the power that made him? Osibanjo's years in office should force Nigerians to confront a hard truth. Pastors do not automatically make good leaders. Faith does not equal courage, and carrying a Bible does not guarantee a man will speak when silence becomes convenient. For too long, Nigerians have learned on religion identity as a shortcut to trust who to vote for. They think a Muslim leader is expected to defend Islam, a Christian leader is expected to embody Christ. But politics is not built on that ground. The real danger is that by expecting pastors or imams to fix Nigeria through their religious background, citizens lower the standard of leadership. They become satisfied with titles instead of demanding action. The church celebrates Osibanjo as a pastor in power, but when it mattered, the country saw the pastoral title had no practical impact on governance. What Nigerians need are structures of accountability, leaders who will be held responsible for their words and action, systems that do not allow silence in the face of crisis, and citizens who do not excuse failure simply because the man in office shares their fate. We can learn from the historical verdict. When he had the chance to speak for God and for Nigerians, Yemi Osinbajo chose silence. So in a nutshell, what do you have to say about this? Do you think he was pastor who was swallowed in silence while in power? Drop your comments if you have anything to say. And until next time, don't forget to like and subscribe.